The metallic corridors of Research Station Zephyr 7 hummed with the familiar drone of life support systems, casting long shadows under the pale blue lighting that marked another routine day cycle. Dr. Elena Vasquez adjusted her lab coat as she walked briskly toward Section C, her footsteps echoing against the polished floor. The assignment had seemed straightforward enough when Admiral Chen briefed her 3 weeks ago. Conduct xenobiological analysis on a captured specimen, file reports, maintain security protocols. Nothing she hadn't done dozens of times before during her 15 years with the Terran Scientific Corps. What Admiral Chen hadn't mentioned was the nature of the specimen itself. Elena paused at the reinforced blast doors leading to the containment wing, scanning her credentials against the biometric reader. The heavy doors slid apart with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a corridor lined with observation windows. Most cells remained empty, their occupants long since transferred to other facilities or released back to their homeworlds after diplomatic negotiations. But Cell 7 held something different. Through the reinforced transparisteel, Elena caught her first glimpse of the creature that had been causing such heated debates in the upper echelons of military command. The being sat motionless in the center of the sterile white chamber, its massive frame hunched forward in what might have been meditation or despair. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, even while seated, the creature possessed a distinctly lupin appearance that set it apart from any known species in the galactic database. Its fur, a deep silver gray that seemed to shift and shimmer under the harsh containment lights, covered a powerfully muscled frame that spoke of both intelligence and predatory capability. Large, pointed ears twitched occasionally at sounds beyond human hearing, while amber eyes stared at the far wall with an intensity that made Elena's skin crawl. Most disturbing were the hands, or perhaps claws would be more accurate, that ended in razor-sharp talons capable of rending metal. Elena activated her personal recorder and began her initial observations. Day 1 of Xenobiological Assessment, Research Station Zephyr 7. Subject displays characteristics consistent with evolved canine physiology, though bipedal locomotion and apparent tool use suggest higher cognitive function. Physical examination pending subject cooperation and security clearance from Station Commander Webb. The creature's ear twitched, and those burning amber eyes shifted to meet Elena's gaze through the observation window. For a moment, she felt as though she were being studied just as intently as she was studying. There was an unmistakable intelligence behind those eyes, something that transcended mere animal cunning. The being tilted its massive head slightly, almost as if acknowledging her presence. Fascinating, Elena murmured, making additional notes on her tablet. Subject demonstrates awareness of observation, possible recognition of individual observers. Behavioral patterns suggest. Dr. Vasquez? The voice belonged to Lieutenant Morrison, the young security officer assigned to escort research personnel through the containment wing. His nervous demeanor and pale complexion suggested this assignment was well outside his comfort zone. Commander Webb wants to see you in his office before you begin any direct interaction protocols. Elena nodded, taking one last look at the captive being. Those amber eyes followed her movement, tracking her with predatory precision until she disappeared around the corner. The walk to Commander Webb's office gave her time to process what she had observed, though nothing in her extensive xenobiological training had prepared her for this particular specimen. Commander Webb's office occupied a corner of the station's administrative section, its large windows offering a view of the swirling nebula that gave Zephyr 7 its remote location. The commander himself was a veteran of 3 colonial wars, his graying beard and weathered features speaking to decades of service in humanity's expansion among the stars. He looked up from a stack of reports as Elena entered, gesturing for her to take a seat across from his desk. "Doctor, I trust you've had your first look at our guest." Webb's voice carried the weariness of a man dealing with problems far beyond his training or inclination. "Before you begin your assessment, there are several things about this situation that weren't included in your initial briefing." Elena settled into the offered chair, her scientific curiosity warring with a growing sense of unease. I assumed there would be additional security considerations, given the level of containment protocols already in place. Security is the least of our concerns, Webb replied, pulling up a holographic display that showed the creature's capture. The image depicted a scene of devastating carnage, twisted metal, scorch marks from energy weapons, and the unmistakable signs of close-quarters combat. This being single-handedly destroyed an entire Terra Marine squad during initial contact. 8 highly trained soldiers dead in under 3 minutes. The hologram shifted to show tactical footage from the surviving Marines' helmet cameras. Elena watched in horrified fascination as the creature moved with impossible speed and grace, its claws tearing through advanced armor as if it were paper. Energy weapons that should have dropped any known sentient species barely seemed to slow it down. How was it captured? Elena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Stunner nets, tranquilizer gas, and more luck than skill, Webb admitted. The creature appeared to be protecting something, a small settlement of colonists that had been attacked by raiders. By the time our Marines arrived, it had already eliminated most of the raider force. When our people attempted to establish contact, it apparently viewed them as additional threats. Elena studied the tactical data, noting the precise, calculated nature of the creature's attacks. This wasn't mindless savagery. Every move demonstrated tactical awareness and combat experience that suggested military training or natural predatory instincts honed to perfection. What about communication attempts? She asked. Webb's expression darkened. That's where things get complicated. The creature has remained completely silent since capture. No vocalizations, no attempts at gestural communication, no response to linguistic protocols from any known species. For all intents and purposes, it might as well be a particularly dangerous animal. But you don't believe that. No, I don't. Webb deactivated the holographic display and leaned back in his chair. There are too many indicators of higher intelligence. Tool use, tactical awareness, the way it studies its surroundings. Most telling is its behavior during feeding times. It consistently waits until food is placed in the cell and personnel have withdrawn before approaching. That suggests understanding of social hierarchy and possibly even courtesy. Elena made notes on her tablet, her mind already racing with potential research approaches. What about its origin? Any indication of homeworld or species classification? That's where your expertise comes in, Doctor. We've run genetic analysis against every known species database, including classified military files. No matches. This creature represents either a completely unknown species or... Webb paused, as if reluctant to voice his next thought. Or what? Or genetic modification on a scale we've never encountered. Some of our preliminary tests suggest artificial enhancement of natural characteristics. Increased bone density, enhanced muscle fiber efficiency, accelerated healing rates. If this is representative of an entire species, they could pose a significant threat to human expansion. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. The implications were staggering. A species with the physical capabilities she had just witnessed, possibly enhanced through advanced genetic manipulation, could shift the balance of power in the entire sector. What are my parameters for interaction? Full biometric analysis, behavioral assessment, and, if possible, establishment of communication protocols. The brass wants to know everything about this creature's capabilities, weaknesses, and potential military applications. Webb's tone made it clear he found the last point distasteful. You'll have full security support and access to whatever equipment you need. And if the creature proves hostile during testing, then you withdraw immediately. This station houses over 300 personnel, Doctor. I won't risk their lives for any research objective, no matter how important. Webb stood, signaling the end of their meeting. Lieutenant Morrison will escort you back to the containment wing. Your equipment requests have already been approved and should arrive within the hour. Elena made her way back through the station's corridors, her mind processing the weight of responsibility that had just been placed on her shoulders. This was no longer a routine xenobiological assessment. She was potentially making first contact with a new species, one that could reshape humanity's understanding of genetic engineering and military capability. The containment wing felt different now, charged with possibilities and dangers she hadn't fully appreciated during her initial visit. The creature remained in the same position, though its amber eyes tracked her movement the moment she appeared at the observation window. There was something almost expectant in its posture, as if it had been waiting for her return. Elena activated her recording equipment and began documenting her observations in greater detail. Subject displays consistent awareness of external environment despite apparent isolation. Posture suggests patience rather than distress, indicating possible understanding that current situation is temporary. No signs of psychological deterioration despite 3 weeks in captivity. The creature's ears twitched, and its massive head turned more fully toward the observation window. For a moment, Elena could have sworn she saw something like curiosity in those amber eyes. The being rose slowly to its full height, moving with fluid grace despite its impressive size. It approached the window with deliberate steps, stopping just beyond arm's reach of the transparent steel barrier. Up close, the creature was even more impressive. Elena could see the intelligence burning behind its eyes, the way it studied her with the same scientific interest she was showing it. Its breathing was slow and controlled, suggesting either remarkable emotional discipline or familiarity with being observed. Most intriguingly, it made no aggressive gestures or displays of dominance. Remarkable, Elena whispered, making rapid notes on her tablet. Subject demonstrates curiosity about observer, approaches without aggressive intent, maintains respectful distance from containment barrier, possible understanding of social boundaries. The creature tilted its head slightly, almost as if responding to her voice. One clawed hand rose slowly, pressing flat against the transparent steel from its side. The gesture was unmistakably communicative, though Elena couldn't determine its intended meaning. Lieutenant Morrison's voice crackled through her comm unit. "Doctor, your equipment has arrived. The mobile lab units are being set up in Observation Bay 2. "Acknowledged," Elena replied, though she found herself reluctant to leave. The creature watched her with those piercing amber eyes, its hands still pressed against the barrier. There was something almost plaintive about its posture, as if it were trying to establish connection across the vast gulf of species and circumstances that separated them. Elena pressed her own hand against the transparent steel, aligning it with the creature's much larger appendage. The being's eyes widened slightly, and its ears perked forward with obvious interest. For a moment, they stood like mirror images, separated only by the barrier that kept one captive and the other safe. "I'll be back," Elena promised, though she wasn't sure if the creature could understand her words. "We're going to figure this out." As she turned to leave, Elena caught a glimpse of the creature's reflection in the polished floor. Even in that distorted image, she could see the intelligence and dignity that radiated from its bearing. This was no mere animal to be studied and cataloged. This was a sentient being whose capture and imprisonment raised questions that went far beyond scientific curiosity. The mobile lab units were state-of-the-art, equipped with everything from basic biometric scanners to advanced genetic sequencing equipment. Elena spent the next hour familiarizing herself with the specialized tools while reviewing the preliminary data that had been collected during the creature's initial processing. The genetic analysis results were particularly intriguing. While the creature's baseline DNA showed characteristics consistent with evolved carnivorous mammalian species, there were distinct markers suggesting artificial modification. Enhanced protein synthesis, reinforced bone structure, and what appear to be accelerated healing factors all pointed to sophisticated genetic engineering. "Doctor," Lieutenant Morrison appeared in the lab doorway, looking even more nervous than before. "Commander Webb wants to know if you're ready to begin direct observation protocols." Elena checked her equipment one final time, ensuring all sensors and recording devices were functioning properly. As ready as I can be, Lieutenant. Let's see what our guest is willing to tell us. The walk back to the containment wing felt longer than before, weighted with the knowledge that she was about to cross a threshold that could change everything. Elena had conducted first contact protocols before, but never under circumstances like these. The creature's demonstrated combat capabilities, combined with its apparent intelligence and dignity, created a unique challenge that would test all her skills as both scientist and diplomat. As they approached Cell 7, Elena noticed the creature had returned to its original position in the center of the chamber. But now its posture seemed different, more alert, more focused. It was waiting for her, she realized. Somehow, it understood that their brief interaction at the observation window had been only the beginning. Elena took a deep breath and activated her recording equipment. Whatever happened next would determine not only the success of her mission, but possibly the future relationship between humanity and an entirely new form of life. The routine assignment that Admiral Chun had described was about to become anything but routine. The creature's amber eyes met hers through the transparent steel, and Elena saw her own determination reflected in that alien gaze. They were about to embark on a journey of discovery that neither of them could have anticipated, across barriers of species, language, and understanding that had never been crossed before. And Elena couldn't shake the feeling that the creature was just as curious about her as she was about it. Elena spent 3 days running non-invasive scans and behavioral observations before she realized she was approaching the problem entirely wrong. The creature, she had started thinking of it as he based on apparent masculine physical characteristics, wasn't behaving like any captive specimen she had encountered before. He was studying her just as systematically as she was studying him. Computer, replay observation sequence 7 alpha. Elena commanded from her position in the mobile lab. The holographic display activated, showing footage from the previous day's interaction session. She watched herself conducting biometric scans while the creature remained perfectly still, allowing the sensors to gather data without resistance or apparent distress. What struck her most was the creature's behavior between active scanning periods. When he thought the sensors were inactive, he would move to different positions around the cell, always maintaining visual contact with the observation window. His movements were deliberate and methodical, almost as if he were testing the range and capabilities of her equipment. "He's mapping our detection systems," Elena murmured, making notes on her tablet. Every position change corresponds to potential blind spots or sensor limitations. This isn't passive cooperation, it's active intelligence gathering. Lieutenant Morrison, who had been assigned as her permanent escort, shifted uncomfortably behind her. "Doctor, are you suggesting the creature is planning an escape attempt?" "No," Elena replied after a moment's consideration. "If he wanted to escape, I believe he would have done so already. The containment systems are impressive, but they weren't designed to hold something with his demonstrated capabilities. He's choosing to remain here." The implications of that realization were staggering. Elena pulled up the tactical footage from the creature's capture once again, studying the combat sequences with fresh perspective. The being had fought with devastating effectiveness against the Marine squad, but there were moments, brief hesitations, calculated restraint, that suggested he could have been even more lethal if he had chosen to be. Computer, analyze combat footage for instances of non-lethal force application, Elena commanded. The system highlighted several sequences where the creature had opted for disabling rather than killing blows. A Marine pinned, but not dismembered. Weapons destroyed rather than their wielders eliminated. Even in the heat of battle, he had shown remarkable restraint for something supposedly driven by predatory instinct. Elena's comm unit chimed with an incoming message from Commander Webb. "Doctor, we need to discuss your progress report. My office, 30 minutes. The walk to Webb's office gave Elena time to organize her thoughts, though she suspected her preliminary conclusions would not be well received by military command. The creature wasn't the mindless predator they had assumed. He was something far more complex and potentially dangerous to their preconceptions. Commander Webb was reviewing her submitted data when she arrived, his expression growing progressively more troubled as he scrolled through her observations. Doctor, some of these findings are concerning. You're attributing tactical analysis and strategic thinking to what is essentially a large predator. With respect, Commander, that assumption is exactly what's been preventing us from making real progress, Elena replied, taking her seat across from his desk. This being isn't acting like a captive animal. He's acting like a prisoner of war. Webb's eyes narrowed. Explain. Elena activated her tablet and projected her compiled behavioral analysis. Every action he takes demonstrates understanding of military hierarchy, security protocols, and strategic assessment. He allows medical scans because he recognizes their scientific nature, but he's simultaneously gathering intelligence about our capabilities and limitations. You think he's planning something? I think he's preparing for something. The question is what? Elena highlighted several sequences from her observations. Look at his movement patterns. He's memorizing every detail of the containment system, but not in the way someone planning an escape would. It's more like someone preparing to explain security weaknesses to a superior officer. The implications hung heavy in the air between them. If Elena's assessment was correct, they weren't dealing with a captured beast. They were holding a military asset from an unknown faction, possibly one with capabilities that could revolutionize warfare. What do you recommend for next steps? Webb asked finally. Direct communication attempts. If he possesses the intelligence I believe he does, then treating him as an animal is not only scientifically counterproductive, it's potentially dangerous to future human-alien relations. Webb was quiet for several moments, weighing options that all carried significant risk. Doctor, if you're wrong about this creature's intelligence, direct contact could result in your death and a significant security breach. If you're right, we could be making first contact with a species that views us as hostile captors. Either way, we need to know the truth, Elena replied. Keeping him in indefinite containment serves no one's interests, and it's certainly not advancing our understanding of his capabilities or intentions. After extensive discussion with security personnel and xenobiological specialists via encrypted communications with Earth, Commander Webb authorized limited direct contact protocols. Elena would enter the containment chamber wearing full protective gear, with multiple security teams positioned at strategic points throughout the facility. Any sign of aggressive behavior would result in immediate extraction. Elena spent the following day preparing for what could be the most important xenobiological contact of her career. The creature seemed to sense something significant was approaching. His behavior became more alert, more focused. When she appeared at the observation window for her final external assessment, he was standing at the center of the chamber, waiting. He knows, Elena told Lieutenant Morrison as they reviewed security protocols one final time. Somehow, he understands that something is about to change. The lieutenant's nervous energy had only intensified over the past week. Doctor, the security briefings indicate this creature killed 8 Marines in close-quarters combat. Are you certain about direct interaction? Elena looked through the observation window at the massive figure standing motionless in the containment chamber. Those amber eyes met hers with what she could only describe as anticipation. Lieutenant, if he wanted to hurt people, I don't think this containment system could stop him. He's choosing not to be a threat. The question is why. The preparation took another hour. Elena donned the environmental suit designed for hazardous xenobiological contact, its built-in sensors and communication systems allowing for constant monitoring by the security team. She carried no weapons, a deliberate choice that would either demonstrate peaceful intent or prove to be a fatal mistake. Commander Webb's voice crackled through her helmet communicator as she approached the containment chamber entrance. Doctor, you're authorized to proceed with direct contact protocols. Any sign of aggressive behavior from the subject, and you extract immediately. Understood. Understood, Commander, Elena replied, though her attention was focused on the figure visible through the transparent steel. The creature had moved closer to the chamber entrance, positioning himself where he would be clearly visible when the door opened. His posture was alert, but non-threatening, at least as non-threatening as something of his size and obvious capabilities could appear. The containment chamber door slid open with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure. Elena stepped across the threshold, entering the same space as a being that could theoretically tear her apart with minimal effort. She moved slowly, keeping her hands visible and her posture as non-threatening as possible. The creature remained motionless, watching her with those intense amber eyes. Up close, Elena could see details that hadn't been apparent through the observation window. Scars across his chest and shoulders that spoke of previous battles. The careful way he held himself to appear less imposing. And, most significantly, the unmistakable intelligence burning behind his gaze. "Hello," Elena said softly, her voice carrying clearly in the chamber's acoustics. "My name is Elena. I'm here to try to understand who you are." The creature's ears twitched forward, clearly responding to her voice. After a moment's hesitation, he slowly lowered himself to a sitting position, reducing his apparent threat level while maintaining eye contact. The gesture was unmistakably communicative. Elena felt her heart racing as she realized she was witnessing genuine first contact behavior. This wasn't an animal responding to stimuli. This was an intelligent being attempting to establish peaceful communication despite their circumstances. "You understand me, don't you?" Elena continued, keeping her voice gentle and non-threatening. "You might not speak our language, but you understand that I'm trying to communicate." The creature tilted his massive head slightly, a gesture that seemed to indicate consideration of her words. Then slowly and deliberately he nodded. Elena's breath caught in her throat. The simple gesture shattered any remaining doubt about the being's intelligence and awareness. She was communicating with a sentient alien life form, one who had been imprisoned for weeks without any attempt at establishing mutual understanding. "Commander," she whispered into her comm unit, "we have confirmed intelligent communication. The subject is demonstrating clear understanding of human gestural language." Webb's response was immediate. "Doctor, continue with extreme caution. This changes everything about our situation." Elena turned her attention back to the creature, who had remained perfectly still throughout her brief report. "I know you've been here for weeks," she said, feeling foolish for not attempting communication sooner. "I know you could probably escape if you wanted to. Why are you staying?" The creature's expression shifted, and Elena caught a glimpse of something that looked remarkably like sadness. He raised one clawed hand, pointing first at himself, then at Elena, and finally at the observation window where she knew security teams were watching. It took her a moment to understand the gesture's meaning, but when comprehension dawned, it changed everything about how she viewed their situation. The creature wasn't staying because he was trapped. He was staying because he was waiting. Waiting for someone to recognize his intelligence. Waiting for someone to attempt communication. Waiting for proof that humanity was capable of more than violence and imprisonment. "You were waiting for us to try talking to you," Elena said, wonder creeping into her voice. "You've been waiting this whole time for someone to treat you as more than an animal." The creature nodded again, more emphatically this time. Then he did something that made Elena's scientific training war with her emotions. He pressed one massive hand to his chest and attempted to speak. The sound that emerged was barely recognizable as an attempt at human speech, filtered through vocal cords and mouth structure never designed for such communication. But the intention was unmistakable, and Elena could just make out what he was trying to say. "Duck." Elena repeated the sounds slowly, trying to understand their meaning. "Duck, is it your name?" The creature, Kaidak, nodded enthusiastically, his ears perking forward with obvious pleasure at being understood. He pointed to himself again, repeating the sounds more clearly this time. "Kaidak," Elena said, and watched as something like joy flickered across the alien features. "It's an honor to meet you, Kaidak. I'm sorry it took us so long to try talking to you." Kaidak's response was to slowly extend one clawed hand toward Elena, palm up in what appeared to be a gesture of greeting or offering. Elena looked at the massive appendage, each claw capable of cutting through steel, being offered to her with careful deliberation. Elena's comm unit crackled with urgent voices. "Doctor, do not engage in physical contact. We don't know the potential for pathogen transmission or aggressive response." But Elena found herself studying Kydak's eyes, seeing the patience and intelligence there, the careful way he held his hand to avoid appearing threatening. This was a being making a conscious choice to trust her despite weeks of imprisonment, despite having every reason to view humans as enemies. Elena slowly reached out and placed her gloved hand against Kydak's palm. The alien's hand was warm even through her environmental suit, and she could feel the careful restraint he exercised to avoid accidentally harming her with his claws. For a moment, they remained connected across the vast gulf of species and circumstance. Elena saw something shift in Kydak's expression, relief perhaps, or recognition that he was finally being treated as the intelligent being he clearly was. "Doctor," Commander Webb's voice cut through the moment. "We're reading elevated stress indicators from your suit sensors. Withdraw immediately." Elena realized her heart rate and breathing had accelerated, not from fear, but from the profound significance of what was happening. She was making genuine first contact with an alien intelligence, and the experience was overwhelming every system designed to monitor her safety. "I'm fine, Commander," she said, though she reluctantly withdrew her hand from Kydak's. "Better than fine, actually. We just made a breakthrough that changes everything." Kydak watched her step back, understanding in his amber eyes that the moment was ending. But something fundamental had shifted between them. The barrier of misunderstanding had been crossed, and Elena knew there would be no going back to treating him as simply a specimen to be studied. "Kydak," Elena said as she prepared to leave the chamber, "I'll be back tomorrow. We have a lot more to talk about." The alien nodded solemnly, then surprised Elena by attempting another word in her language. The sounds were clearer this time, more carefully formed. "Thank you." Elena felt tears prick her eyes behind her helmet's visor. "You're welcome, Kydak. You're very welcome." As the containment chamber door sealed behind her, Elena knew that everything about their situation had changed. Kydak wasn't a captured animal or a military asset to be studied and cataloged. He was a person, a being with dignity and intelligence who deserved to be treated as such. The questions that arose from this realization were staggering. What species did he represent? How had he learned to understand human speech? Most importantly, what had brought him to that colonial settlement where he had been captured while apparently defending human civilians? Elena spent the rest of the day compiling her report, knowing that her recommendations would send shockwaves through military command and scientific circles. They weren't dealing with a new form of biological weapon. They were dealing with a potential ally whose capture might have created a diplomatic incident of unprecedented proportions. But as she worked, Elena couldn't shake the image of Kydak's eyes when she had finally attempted communication. The patience, the intelligence, and, most telling of all, the hope that had flickered there when she had spoken his name. Whatever secrets Kydak held, whatever his true nature and origins, one thing had become absolutely clear. Humanity had just taken the first steps toward a relationship that could change everything about their place in the galaxy. Elena's second direct contact session with Kydak revealed capabilities that fundamentally challenged everything humanity thought it knew about genetic limitations and evolutionary possibility. The alien's capacity for learning human language proved remarkable. Within 3 days of their initial communication, he had mastered basic conversational patterns that should have taken weeks to develop. "How many worlds have humans settled?" Kydak asked during their morning session, his pronunciation improving dramatically with each attempt. He sat cross-legged on the chamber floor, maintaining the non-threatening posture that had become his standard during their interactions. Elena consulted her tablet, which now contained extensive notes about Kydak's background and capabilities. Over 400 colonies across 63 star systems. We've been expanding for almost 2 centuries. Kaidak's ears flicked forward with obvious interest. My people know of 17 human worlds. We watch from distance. The revelation sent a chill through Elena. Your people have been observing human expansion? For how long? Since first ships left Terra system. We followed, learned about human nature. Kaidak paused, searching for the right words in his still-developing vocabulary. Most species expand through conquest. Humans are different. Elena made rapid notes while trying to process the implications. An unknown species had been conducting surveillance on human expansion for decades, possibly centuries, and they had remained completely undetected. The technological capabilities required for such extended observation suggested advancement far beyond current human understanding. Different how? Elena asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Humans build, not just take. Create homes, not just territory. Protect weak, not just strong. Kaidak's amber eyes focused on Elena with intense concentration. This is why I was there, at settlement. The mystery that had puzzled military command since Kaidak's capture was finally beginning to unfold. Elena leaned forward, careful to maintain non-threatening body language while encouraging him to continue. The raiders who attacked the colony, you were already there when they arrived? Kaidak nodded solemnly. My people assigned watchers to human settlements, to learn, to understand, to protect when necessary. His expression darkened. Raiders were Zelkari. They do not take prisoners. They do not show mercy. Elena recognized the species name from military briefings. The Zelkari were a nomadic raider culture known for their brutality towards civilian populations. They had been responsible for the destruction of several human colonies on the Outer Rim, always attacking settlements too remote to receive timely military support. You were protecting the colonists, Elena said, understanding dawning in her voice. That's why you fought the Marines when they arrived. You thought they were additional raiders. Human military armor looks similar to Zelkari assault troops. In thermal imaging, Kaidak explained, his vocabulary expanding with remarkable speed. I had been fighting for 6 hours. Many dead. When new armed force arrived, I assumed. You assumed they were reinforcements for the raiders, Elena finished. The Marines had no way to know you were defending the colony, and you had no way to know they were there to help. Kaidak's massive head drooped slightly. Mistake cost lives. Good warriors died because communication failed. The tragedy of the situation was becoming clear. 8 Marines had died, not because they encountered a hostile alien predator, but because of a catastrophic misunderstanding between allies who had been fighting the same enemy. Elena felt a surge of anger at the military command structure that had classified Kaidak as a hostile specimen rather than investigating the circumstances of his capture. Kaidak, when your people observe human colonies, do they ever intervene directly? Only when genocide is certain. We do not interfere with human expansion, but we do not allow innocent death when we can prevent. Kaidak met Elena's eyes directly. Your species reminds us of what we once were. The weight of that statement struck Elena with unexpected force. She was beginning to understand that humanity had attracted the attention of a species with capabilities that could reshape the balance of power in their sector of the galaxy, and that attention had been largely positive. What do you mean, what you once were? Kaidak was quiet for several moments, clearly struggling with complex concepts that strained his developing human vocabulary. My people were once like humans, young species expanding, learning, making mistakes. We had guardians, watchers, species that protected us when we could not protect ourselves. Elena felt her scientific excitement warring with a growing sense of cosmic significance. Are you saying that your people are protecting humanity the way someone once protected you? Not protecting, watching, learning, hoping. Kaidak's pronunciation was becoming clearer with each exchange. The galaxy has few species like humans. Most become conquerors or victims. Humans become builders, creators. This is rare. Elena's comm unit crackled with an urgent message from Commander Webb. Doctor, we need you in the command center immediately. Priority Alpha communication from Sector Command. Elena felt reluctance at leaving her session with Kaidak, just as he was revealing information that could change humanity's understanding of their place in the galaxy. I have to go, Kaidak. We'll continue this conversation soon. Dr. Elena, Kaidak said, his improved speech catching her attention. The communication, it is about my people, yes? Elena paused, studying the alien's expression. His intelligence remained startling, particularly his ability to infer larger patterns from limited information. What makes you think that? I have been missing for many weeks. My people will be concerned. They will be looking. Kaidak's amber eyes held a gravity that made Elena uncomfortable. Your military may interpret search efforts as hostile action. The implications hit Elena like physical blow. If Kaidak's people were actively searching for him, human forces could encounter them without warning or proper context. Given the technological capabilities he had already demonstrated, such an encounter could prove catastrophic for humanity. Elena ran through the station corridors toward the command center, her mind racing with possibilities and potential disasters. She arrived to find Commander Webb in intense discussion with several senior officers via holographic communication links. Doctor, Webb acknowledged her arrival without breaking from his conversation. We've received reports from 3 separate human worlds about unidentified vessels conducting what appears to be systematic search patterns. No hostile actions, but ships with capabilities our sensors can barely detect. Elena felt her stomach drop. How long have they been searching? Started approximately 1 week ago, according to long-range monitoring stations. The vessels appear to be following human shipping lanes and colony routes, but maintaining distance from populated areas. Webb's expression was grim. Sector Command wants to know if your research subject has any connection to these activities. Elena looked at the assembled officers, realizing that her next words could determine whether humanity's first contact with Kaidak species resulted in peaceful cooperation or catastrophic conflict. Commander, I need to speak with you privately. Immediately. Webb's office had never felt smaller as Elena rapidly briefed him on Kaidak's revelations. The commander's expression shifted from skepticism to alarm as she explained the surveillance network, the protective interventions, and, most critically, the likelihood that the searching vessels were looking for their captured operative. You're telling me that we've been unknowingly holding a prisoner of war from a species with the technological capability to monitor our expansion undetected for 2 centuries. Webb's voice carried the controlled tension of a man facing a crisis far beyond his training. Not a prisoner of war, a guardian. Someone whose mission was to protect human colonists from raider attacks. Elena pulled up her session recordings, highlighting key passages. Commander, this changes everything about our tactical situation. We're not facing a potential enemy. We're facing potential allies who think we've captured one of their people. Webb studied the data, his military mind clearly processing the strategic implications. What do you recommend? Immediate communication with the searching vessels. Full disclosure about Kaidak's status and condition, along with an explanation of the circumstances surrounding his capture. Elena paused, knowing her next suggestion would be controversial, and preparation for Kaidak's release as a gesture of good faith. Doctor, releasing a being with his demonstrated capabilities without understanding his species' full intentions could be what, Commander? The only rational response to discovering we've imprisoned someone who was trying to save human lives. Elena's scientific objectivity was being overwhelmed by moral certainty. Kaidak didn't attack our people because he was hostile. He attacked them because he thought they were raiders threatening the colonists he had been protecting. Webb was quiet for several moments, weighing options that could determine humanity's future relationship with a species possessing capabilities beyond their current understanding. I'll need to consult with Sector Command. This is far beyond my authority level. Elena returned to the containment wing to find Kaidak standing at the observation window, his posture alert and expectant. Even through the transparisteel, she could see the tension in his bearing. Somehow, he had sensed the significance of recent developments. "My people are searching for me," Kydak said as soon as Elena entered the chamber for their afternoon session. It wasn't a question. Yes, human monitoring stations have detected unidentified vessels following search patterns through our territory. Elena settled into her usual position across from him. "Kydak, what happens if they can't find you?" Kydak's ears drooped slightly. "They will assume I am dead. They will report to Council of Guardians that human military killed Watcher during protective intervention." Elena felt ice form in her stomach. What would the Council's response be to that news? Guardianship would end. Humans would be classified as hostile species. No more Watchers. No more protection from raiders. Kydak met her eyes directly. Your people would face Galaxy alone. The full scope of the crisis was becoming clear. Humanity had unknowingly been operating under the protection of an advanced species for their entire expansion period. The loss of that protection could leave them vulnerable to threats they didn't even know existed. Kydak, if we could arrange communication with your people, could you explain what happened here? Could you prevent this classification change? Perhaps, but communication must come soon. Search patterns will end in few days. If I'm not found, Kydak's expression was grave. Galaxy has many predator species. Humans are still young, still learning. Without guardians, Elena's comm unit interrupted with another urgent message from Commander Webb. "Doctor, Sector Command is authorizing direct communication attempts with the unidentified vessels. We need your assessment of potential cultural protocols for first contact." Elena looked at Kydak, seeing hope flicker in his amber eyes. "Commander, I recommend that our first communication include Kydak's voice. Let his people hear that he's alive and unharmed." That could work. Webb's voice carried cautious optimism. Can he explain the circumstances of his capture in a way that won't be seen as an admission of human hostility? Elena turned to Kydak. "Can you help us? Can you explain to your people what really happened at the colony?" Kydak rose to his full height, his bearing suddenly more formal and authoritative than Elena had seen before. "I can speak truth. Human military acted to protect colonists, same as my mission. Conflict was miscommunication, not hostility. But will they believe you? Will your council accept that explanation?" Kydak's expression grew thoughtful. Council values truth, but they also value proof. Words alone may not be enough. Elena felt a new idea forming, one that could either solve their crisis or make it significantly worse. What kind of proof would convince them? Demonstration of human commitment to peace. Evidence that humans value life. Choose cooperation over conquest. Kydak tilted his massive head. Perhaps joint operation. Humans and Guardians working together against common threat. Elena's scientific mind raced with possibilities. The Zelkari raiders were still operating in the sector, attacking human colonies and potentially other species as well. A joint operation against such a clear threat could demonstrate human values while establishing the foundation for ongoing cooperation. Kydak, do your people know where the Zelkari base their operations? Yes, we have been tracking them for many cycles. But Guardian Doctrine prohibits direct military action, except in defense of innocence. What if humans requested Guardian assistance in protecting our colonies? Would that fall within your people's doctrines? Kydak's ears perked forward with obvious interest. Requested assistance for protection of innocence, yes. This would be acceptable to Council. Elena activated her comm unit with growing excitement. "Commander, I think we found our solution. But it's going to require approval from much higher than Sector Command." The next several hours blurred together as Elena found herself at the center of negotiations that could reshape humanity's understanding of their place in the galaxy. Military planners, xenobiological specialists, and diplomatic officials joined the conversation via secured communications as they worked to craft humanity's first formal contact with an alien species. Throughout the process, Kydak remained patient and helpful, answering questions about Guardian technology territorial boundaries, and cultural protocols with remarkable precision for someone still learning human language. Elena began to suspect that his rapid linguistic development wasn't entirely natural, possibly another enhancement that allowed Guardians to quickly adapt to communication with the species they protected. As evening shift began on the station, Elena received word that contact with the Guardian vessels had been successfully established. Kaidak's voice, transmitted through quantum communication arrays, had reached his people. The searching ships had acknowledged the transmission and were requesting formal diplomatic contact. Doctor, Commander Webb's voice carried a mixture of relief and apprehension. The Guardian vessels are requesting permission to retrieve their operative. They've agreed to full diplomatic discussions regarding future cooperation. Elena felt a complex mix of emotions as she realized her sessions with Kaidak were coming to an end. Over the past weeks, she had developed genuine respect and affection for the alien who had shown such patience and dignity despite his imprisonment. When will they arrive? Elena asked. 12 hours. They're sending a single small craft for Kaidak, along with a diplomatic representative for formal negotiations with human leadership. Elena made her way back to the containment wing for what would likely be her final private conversation with Kaidak. She found him standing at the observation window, but his posture had changed. Gone was the patient resignation that had characterized his captivity. Instead, he stood with the bearing of someone preparing to return to duty. "They're coming for you," Elena said as she entered the chamber. Kaidak nodded, his amber eyes bright with anticipation. "Tomorrow, I return to Stars. But tonight, we finish conversation." Elena settled into her familiar position across from him. "What happens now, Kaidak? Between your people and mine?" "That depends on humans. Guardians offer protection, guidance, alliance against threats like Zelkari." Kaidak's improved speech made his meaning clear. But alliance requires trust, respect, understanding that galaxy is dangerous place for young species alone. Elena felt the weight of representing her entire species in this conversation. What do humans need to do to earn that trust? Kaidak's expression grew serious. "Show that you remember why you explore Stars. Not for conquest, not for resources, but because you hope to find something better than what you left behind." As they talked through the night, Elena began to understand that humanity stood at a crossroads. They could accept guardianship and the restrictions it might entail, or they could choose to face the galaxy's dangers alone. But either choice would fundamentally alter the trajectory of human civilization. The decision would ultimately rest with leaders far above Elena's authority level. But she knew that her reports and recommendations could influence that choice, and the weight of that responsibility was both thrilling and terrifying. Outside the containment chamber windows, the stars that had seemed so familiar just weeks ago now held new mysteries and possibilities. Humanity was about to discover that they had never been alone among those stars. They had simply been too young to recognize the Guardians watching over them. The Guardian vessel that arrived at Research Station Zephyr 7 defied every assumption humanity had made about spacecraft design and capability. Elena watched from the station's observation deck as the ship materialized from what appeared to be empty space, its stealth technology finally disengaging to reveal a craft that seemed more grown than built. The vessel's organic curves and bioluminescent markings suggested a marriage of technology and biology that human science had never achieved. More unsettling was its size. Despite appearing massive from a distance, the ship seemed to shift and adjust its apparent dimensions as it approached, as if space itself were being manipulated around its hull. Dr. Vasquez, Commander Webb's voice carried a mixture of awe and concern as he joined Elena at the observation window. "Our sensors can barely lock onto that thing. Every time we try to get accurate readings, the data changes. It's like the ship exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously." Elena nodded, making notes on her tablet while trying to process the implications of what they were observing. If this is representative of Guardian technology, then We've been operating under protection from a species so advanced that we couldn't even properly detect their presence until they chose to reveal themselves. The diplomatic implications were staggering. Humanity had been exploring the galaxy for centuries, believing themselves to be independent pioneers pushing the boundaries of known space. The reality was that they had been carefully shepherded by guardians whose capabilities made human technology appear primitive by comparison. Kaidak had been prepared for transfer since the early morning hours, though Elena noticed he seemed reluctant to leave the chamber where they had conducted their breakthrough communications. During their final session, he had expressed concerns about humanity's readiness for the larger galactic community. Your species learns quickly, Kaidak had told her, but galaxy contains threats older than human civilization. Predator species that have consumed entire stellar regions. Without guidance, humans could encounter extinction-level dangers. The Guardian vessel completed its docking procedure with Research Station Zephyr 7 using technology that bypassed every security system the station possessed. The ship simply phased through the docking bay's outer barriers as if they didn't exist, reforming its hull integrity once inside the pressurized environment. Elena accompanied Commander Webb to the docking bay for Kaidak's transfer and humanity's first formal diplomatic contact with the Guardian species. The atmosphere was tense with possibility and apprehension as they waited for the alien vessel to complete its arrival sequence. The ship's hull shimmered for several moments before an opening appeared that hadn't been visible moments before. 2 figures emerged from the craft's interior, and Elena felt her breath catch as she got her first look at Guardian technology in its natural context. The first figure was clearly another of Kaidak's species, though smaller in stature and bearing different markings that suggested rank or specialization. The being moved with the same fluid grace Elena had observed in Kaidak, but there was an authoritative bearing that spoke of command responsibility. The second figure challenged every assumption Elena had made about Guardian biology. While maintaining the basic lupin characteristics of Kaidak species, this individual displayed obvious cybernetic enhancements that were seamlessly integrated into living tissue. Sensors and communication arrays grew from the being's skull like organic antennae, while one arm appeared to be entirely artificial, though constructed from materials that pulsed with bioluminescent energy. "Greetings, human representatives," the enhanced Guardian spoke, its voice carrying harmonic overtones that suggested technological augmentation. "I am Nexus Prime Velik, Council Representative for Guardian Fleet Operations. This is Field Commander Thane, Kaidak's direct superior." Elena felt a moment of cultural vertigo as she realized she was participating in humanity's first formal diplomatic contact with an alien species. The routine assignment that had brought her to Station Zephyr 7 had evolved into a moment that would reshape human understanding of their place in the galaxy. Commander Webb stepped forward, clearly struggling with protocols for a situation that had no precedent. "Welcome aboard Research Station Zephyr 7. I am Commander Webb, Station Commanding Officer. Dr. Elena Vasquez has been our primary liaison for communication with your operative." Nexus Prime Velik's cybernetic enhancements pulsed with soft light as the being processed Webb's words. Operative Designation Kaidak has transmitted full tactical reports regarding circumstances of his capture and subsequent treatment. The Council acknowledges that conflict arose from misunderstanding rather than hostility. Elena felt relief wash over her, though she sensed the conversation was far from over. "May I ask about Kaidak's condition? He's expressed eagerness to return to duty, but we wanted to ensure proper medical clearance." Field Commander Thane stepped forward, his bearing more militaristic than the diplomatic Nexus Prime. "Guardian bioregenerative capabilities have maintained Kaidak's physical condition within acceptable parameters. However, psychological assessment will be required following extended isolation from pack bond network." The mention of pack bonds raised new questions about Guardian society and psychology. Elena made mental notes while trying to focus on the immediate diplomatic situation. "If I may," Elena said carefully, Kaidak has expressed concerns about humanity's readiness for what he described as larger galactic threats. Could you elaborate on the nature of these concerns? Nexus Prime Velic's enhanced sensors focused on Elena with obvious interest. Dr. Vasquez, your species has demonstrated remarkable adaptability and resilience during your expansion phase. However, your current technology level renders you vulnerable to several predator species operating in this galactic region. Commander Webb's expression hardened slightly. Are you suggesting that humanity requires protection from threats we're not aware of? Not protection, Field Commander Thane interjected. Guidance. Training. Alliance against common enemies. The Zelkari raiders that Kaidak engaged represent minor threat compared to species like the Devourers or the Hive Mind Collective. Elena felt ice form in her stomach at the casual way these apparently civilization-ending threats were mentioned. How long has humanity been operating in space controlled by these predator species? Your entire expansion period, Nexus Prime Velic replied. Guardian surveillance and intervention have prevented 17 separate extinction-level encounters over past 2 centuries. Most involve species that view young civilizations as either resources to be consumed or territory to be claimed. The weight of revelation was staggering. Humanity's proud history of independent exploration was actually a carefully managed expansion under Guardian protection. Elena found herself wondering how human leadership would react to learning that their civilization's survival had depended on alien intervention. What does the Guardian Council propose regarding future human-Guardian relations? Webb asked, clearly struggling with the implications of their conversation. Nexus Prime Velic's cybernetic enhancements pulsed in patterns that suggested communication with systems beyond Elena's comprehension. Council offers formal alliance, Guardian protection, and guidance in exchange for human cooperation in joint operations against mutual threats. Beginning with Zelkari raider elimination, Elena recognized the opportunity Kaidak had described, a chance for humanity to prove their worthiness as galactic citizens while addressing a clear threat to innocent lives. What would such joint operations entail? Field Commander Thane's expression showed what Elena interpreted as approval. Human ground forces possess adaptability and tactical creativity that Guardian doctrine lacks. Combined with Guardian technology and intelligence resources, elimination of raider bases becomes an achievable objective. Elena could see Webb processing the strategic implications. Joint operations would provide humanity with access to advanced technology while demonstrating human military capability to the Guardians. It was an opportunity for mutual assessment and relationship building. I'll need to consult with Sector Command regarding alliance proposals, Webb said diplomatically. However, I can authorize immediate cooperation in humanitarian operations against raiders threatening civilian populations. Elena felt proud of Webb's response. By framing cooperation in humanitarian terms, he was demonstrating the human values that had attracted Guardian attention in the first place. The docking bay doors opened, and Elena turned to see Kaidak approaching with a security escort. The alien's bearing had transformed since learning of his impending rescue. Gone was the patient resignation of captivity, replaced by the alert confidence of a Guardian returning to duty. Field Commander, Kaidak addressed his superior with obvious respect. Operational status ready for duty assignment. Human allies demonstrated unexpected potential during communication protocols. Field Commander Thane studied his subordinate carefully. Medical assessment will determine duty readiness. However, preliminary reports suggest successful mission parameters despite capture complications. Elena felt a surge of emotion as she realized this might be her last direct interaction with Kaidak. The alien who had shown such patience and dignity during his imprisonment was about to return to a life and duty she could barely comprehend. Kaidak, Elena said, stepping forward. Thank you for helping us understand, for showing patience with our limited perspective. Kaidak turned to Elena with what she had learned to recognize as his expression of respect and gratitude. Dr. Elena, you demonstrated human quality that attracted Guardian interest, willingness to see intelligence in unfamiliar forms. This gives hope for successful alliance. Elena felt tears threatening as the full significance of their relationship became clear. Her decision to treat Kaidak as an intelligent being rather than a specimen had opened the door to humanity's first galactic alliance. The implications would reshape human civilization for generations to come. Nexus Prime Velik approached Elena with obvious interest. Dr. Vasquez, Guardian Council requests your participation in Alliance development protocols. Your xenobiological expertise and successful first contact experience make you valuable asset for future human-Guardian cooperation. Elena looked at Commander Webb, seeing approval in his expression. The routine assignment that had brought her to Zephyr 7 was about to become the foundation for humanity's entry into galactic civilization. I'd be honored to participate, Elena replied, feeling the weight of responsibility and possibility settling on her shoulders. The next several hours involved technical discussions about communication protocols, cultural exchange programs, and the logistics of joint operations against raider bases. Elena found herself at the center of negotiations that would determine humanity's future relationship with the galaxy's existing power structures. As the Guardian vessel prepared to depart with Kaidak aboard, Elena stood at the observation deck watching the impossible ship that had appeared from nowhere just hours before. The universe felt simultaneously larger and smaller than it had when she had first arrived at Zephyr 7 for what should have been a routine assignment. Doctor, Commander Webb joined her at the observation window. Sector Command has approved your assignment to the new Xenodiplomacy Division. Congratulations on humanity's first successful first contact. Elena watched the Guardian vessel begin its departure sequence, its hull shimmering with energies beyond human understanding. Commander, I don't think this was first contact. I think this was an examination. The Guardians have been watching us for centuries, evaluating whether we deserve their protection. What happened here was them deciding we're ready for the next phase. And what phase is that? Elena turned from the window as the Guardian ship faded from visibility, returning to the stealth mode that had kept their species hidden for so long. Learning to be Guardians ourselves. Kaidak told me that his people once received protection from species that came before them. I think we're being prepared to take our place in that chain. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't being offered membership in an existing galactic community. They were being trained to become the protectors of species that would come after them. The responsibility was both humbling and inspiring. Elena's personal communicator chimed with an incoming message from Kaidak, transmitted through the Guardian vessel's communication systems as they departed. The message was brief, but carried profound significance for their developing relationship. Dr. Elena, Guardian Council approval granted for extended cultural exchange program. Request for human representative assignment to Guardian fleet operations. Your participation would honor both species. Star paths lead to interesting possibilities when traveled together. Elena looked out at the stars that had seemed so familiar just weeks ago, now knowing they held civilizations and threats beyond human imagination. The routine assignment had become something far more significant, the beginning of humanity's true journey into the galaxy. But as she contemplated the challenges ahead, Elena found herself thinking not of the advanced technology or cosmic threats they would face, but of a moment in a containment chamber when she had chosen to press her hand against the palm of an alien being. That simple gesture of trust and recognition had opened doors to possibilities that would reshape human civilization. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, filled with predators that could consume entire species and wonders that could inspire civilizations. But humanity would not face those possibilities alone. They had guardians watching over them, and perhaps someday they would become guardians for others. Elena smiled as she began composing her final report on what had started as a routine assignment. She had a feeling that routine assignments were about to become extremely rare in humanity's future. The universe had revealed itself to be a place where patience, understanding, and the willingness to see intelligence in unfamiliar forms could lead to alliances that spanned the stars. And somewhere in the darkness between worlds, Kaidak was returning to his people with stories of humans who had chosen communication over fear, cooperation over conquest. Those stories would shape the relationship between two species for generations to come, all because one scientist had decided to treat a captive being as more than a specimen to be studied. The stars held new promise now, and Elena couldn't wait to explore them with allies who had been watching over humanity's journey all along.